and start the conversation there without anything fancy, being like, this is not, like we have zero float on this job. If we're hitting 50% of the time, probably going to be late, folks. And I like how you're positioning that. I really like how you position that with the project manager and how you're bringing that data to him and showing how that compression will pan out. How that does pan out, I think there are times where you can solve compression and there are times where you can't, and the job is just late. Can you walk us through a couple strategies of like when you get to that realization, and then how does that differ then from the, like, we need to pull this in, where you pull the data and it is clear, where there's like no chance that we are anything faster than 3 months late? Because I do feel like that's a little bit of a different scenario oftentimes than we have a chance. And I think a lot of people hold, you brought it up earlier, the optimism bias. Too many people hold to like that we have a chance, and that plays into the, oh no, now we're late. But how do you get that addressed early in the conversation?
That's a really good question, and it actually goes back to my days prior to Smart PM. I was a claims consultant, really, or at least 50% of the time I was getting brought into disputes, and those disputes were typically delay related, and we were pulled in towards the end of the job, right, when the problem had happened. Like all of a sudden we've admitted it's not going to happen, and now we've got all these reasons why that happened. Just somewhere around this time we blew the end date out. All these changes I just dropped in there. It rained so much, and you gave me so many change orders, and your design was terrible. But the reality was, as a claims consultant, I'd go back to the beginning of the job, I'd listen to what they had to say, and then I'd go say, okay, great, I'm going to go look at the data, and I'm going to come tell you what your data says, and I'm going to go back to the beginning of the job. Because this didn't just happen last month. Your schedule didn't lose 6 months last month. There was a lot of things that led up to that, and there's a story behind it. So what I always wondered was, why are you not looking at your delays as they're happening and justifying what those delays are about? Usually that's the point where you're like backtracking, and then I come forward with an analysis that's completely different than what their recollection was, right? What does the data say versus what are you telling me now? And we, obviously there's truth to both, but what's been forgotten was the last 14 months prior to the last two. And there was a story of delays happening in that time. And many of those delays are likely, partially responsible to the contractor, partially responsible to the owner, but they were never discussed. And that's where I would say that doing, and we've built this into Smart PM is an ongoing delay analysis of your project, month over month, so that you can look at what were the delays and how did you respond? And how did you perform around those delays? So our contractors that we work with now have visibility on what delayed your job in that period. While the delay was happening, what did you do to overcome those delays? Like, that's part of your contract, to do everything in your power to overcome the delays so you can show it to them. And then how did you respond in the future? And how at risk did the things get, and then what happened the next month? So usually there's a lot there that you can go back to the owner and say, hey, here's a delay that happened. I didn't cause it. It's what the data says. It's not what my hired gun consultant said at the end of the job, but it's really what's happening in real time. And how would you like us to respond? Would you like us to compress the schedule and accelerate, because that'll cost money? Not to mention, you're engaging with the owner much sooner of patterns that they may have that are causing problems for the future that could be racking up if those problems keep existing. So being able to know what's delaying the job and how you're responding, and having a forthright conversation through all of construction, as a matter of fact, builds a lot of trust and credibility to you as a manager, to you as a business. And it's all about what everybody wants here. Nobody wants that